Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for July 17th, 2025. Well, hey everyone, I hope you got a nice rest, ready for another wild day in the market. Today is one of our, well, on the earnings side of things, biggest day of earnings of this week. And also a pretty heavy day of economic data on the calendar as well. So let's get started here by taking a look at what happened overnight. If we take a look at those Asian markets here, Asian markets did pretty darn well last night. We saw some moves back to the upside. Australia was up 77.20 or 0.90%. We had Hong Kong. That was down $18.81 or 0.06%. South Korea was up $5.91 or 0.19%. The Nikkei shot up 237.79. That was up by 0.60%. India was down $100.60 at down 0.40%, and Shanghai was higher by 1305.37% last night. If we take a look at European stocks this morning, European markets are green across the board and looking pretty bullish here at the moment. The DAX is up 178.68 or 0.74%. The FTSE is up 38.16 or 0.43%, and the CAC is up 62.96 or 0.82%. Looking good and bullish there. If we look at U.S. futures, kind of an interesting morning here. We've got the Dow futures continuing to look a little bit lower, but we have pumped those other futures up on the day. Right now, we've got Dow futures down 59 points. S&P 500 futures are positive by $3.75, and NASDAQ futures are down, higher by $33 a share this morning. So looking pretty good there on our market, just a little bit of mix. Let's take a look at what's going on in bonds here this morning. Bonds are moving back higher after we got confirmation from the president that he wasn't intending to fire Powell. We've got the 2-year bonds at 3.90%. 10-year bonds are at 4.46%, and those 30-year bonds are at 5.02 this morning, coming back up. Let's take a look at what that's having, how that's impacting the U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar this morning is pushing higher. We've got the dollar up not quite 31 cents. About 31 cents here this morning. Obviously, we're breaking through this downtrend, and now the trick is going to be, can we hold a price support in here? Can we rest and hold in here? We don't want to see that whip back down, so keep an eye on that. You can see that possibility in here on the dollar, that we could easily form an inverted head and shoulders pattern here on that dollar, start seeing that move back up. That would be a good thing, I think, so keep an eye on that. If we take a look at the impact that is having on precious metals, well, precious metals are red across the board. Gold, silver, copper, platinum, palladium, moving down here this morning. Gold at the moment is down $24.70 an ounce, or 0.74%. Silver Silver is down this morning, just about 6 cents, 38.06 an ounce. Gold is at 3,336 and a half an ounce here this morning. So keep an eye on those. We've got oil here this morning moving the other direction. If we take a look at XLE, XLE is pushing, actually, it's interesting. XLE is actually a little bit lower, trying to push back up. But we've got oil futures this morning, however, up 31 cents a barrel, coming in at 68.80 a barrel. Brent crude at the moment 68.66 a barrel. And natural gas is continuing to hold in there, just a little bit on the flat side right now. As a matter of fact, natural gas just ticked to unchanged on the day. So after a nice little run, we need to see natural gas now hold some kind of a higher low in here to get things going. We've tried many times to get this to move to the upside, and it just hasn't been working. You could also look at oil as a potential for this trade. Nice little stretch up, trying to break through some resistance. So a hold in here. I'd start keeping an eye maybe on some natural gas. If we were to take a look at those cryptos this morning, kind of an interesting thing going on here in cryptos. At the moment, we're pretty much green across the board except Bitcoin. Bitcoin down this morning, 695.86 a coin, or just 0.58%. Ether continuing to stretch after a big move yesterday to the upside. Right now up 97.81 a coin, or 2.89%. So showing lots of strength there in Ether, and pretty much everything else is showing green here this morning, as we hear that the House has moved crypto regulation bills along last night for debate and things like that. So keep an eye on that. It's just a procedural rule, but they're moving them forward on crypto regulations. So let's take a look at our index charts here for today. But before we do that, everyone, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Thursday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at our index charts, shake off that bias, and really try to focus in on what we've got going on in the charts. First off, on the diamonds, this is still a very, very bullish upside trend. You can see we just pulled back to test our 50-day moving average, but we do want to recognize the fact that we've created a little bit of uncertainty in here because we've made a couple little lower highs here in the diamonds. Now, what's going to be critical is after yesterday's hammering pattern, nice little rally up at the end of the day, pushing this back up. But if you take a look, if the bulls can push this on through this resistance, remember, hammers are great, but they require a follow through to the upside, and that's not truly a hammer. It's kind of like a long leg doji. But keep an eye on that here this morning. We're going to need to see that push up through that resistance and get that follow through, and then get up here and retest this little downtrending area here in the chart. Notice we'll have to get up through the top side of that black candle to really change things here in the diamond. So if the bulls have some energy, they need to get up through that area and start pushing this back to the upside. And with all the data that we have coming today, every reason to believe that could be possible. Now, if we have the bears push back, you can recognize the fact that this would be the exact area right in this range. If the bears were to push back, no one would be surprised. You know, if we looked back on this chart a week from now and we saw this pushing down and breaking this trend, it wouldn't even be a surprise by looking at that pattern. So keep that in mind. Now, if we were to go that direction, remember we've got a little bit of price support in the chart right through here to try and hold, but you saw yesterday we pierced that pretty easy, went right back to the trend here in the chart. So if we might catch a little bit of support here, we could catch a little bit of support there, or down here where we had yesterday's low yesterday. So watch that and those areas in the diamonds. We will want to keep in mind that although we have pulled back here, we're still very elevated from our major moving averages here, the 50, the 200-day moving averages. So if we see any more weakness in the market, just remember there's some big open spaces that we can fall into if that were the case. Now, if we take a look at our SPY, there is nothing in the SPY that isn't bullish. Yesterday, we pushed right back up. We're in this resistance area of the chart. So the next step here for the SPY is to see whether or not we can push back through this little area of price resistance here on the chart and then get back up there and retest that big black candle's high on the day. Watch that carefully. If those bulls can do that, we're looking at blue sky highs here in the SPY. Now, if the bears have anything to say, then I would look for a retest maybe back down in this area, the bottom of that black candle, to see if they were able to push that on down. And then of course we have these support levels through here that could hold us, and then maybe right back down to yesterday's low and that upside trend in the chart. So watch that carefully. Now here again, we want to remind ourselves that if we do get more selling, if we were to break this pattern to the downside, we're so elevated away from our major moving averages that a big point move is still possible. The same thing is going to be the case for the QQQ. QQQ, probably the most overextended market because of the energy of big tech and well, the willingness of the market to just seem to want to push valuations really to the upside. There's actually a story on CNBC today saying retail traders are starting to turn away from AI stocks at the moment, and even hedge funds are starting to turn away from AI stocks, that we've kind of had our fill of them for a while, and basically suggesting that everybody that's going to be in is in, and that the market has kind of been trained for the buy the dip situation, and everyone's kind of thinking apparently that it's time for a little bit of rest here in AI stocks. We'll see if that plays out, but looking at this chart, we closed at a new record high yesterday, a new record closing high yesterday, pushing back up through this resistance in the chart. So watch that carefully. If we can continue that bullish move here in the chart, and you can see we're trying to gap a little higher this morning here in the Qs, then the next move up here is to retest this area up here in the chart and see if we can break out to blue skies. Of course, if the bears were to have anything to say and push back, we might test this area price support and then push on lower, little price support right in there that we might catch, and then of course right back down here to see if yesterday's low holds as support. Now you can see in this trend, it all depends on how you draw this trend, but this trend right in here, that's about the only way I can connect these 2 points up here in the chart. So it is possible that this is not the trend, that we've got to rest out here a little bit more. So just keep an eye on that to see if that resumption of the upside trend is going to continue to follow through. But a close of a new record high out here has me thinking that my trend is okay here at the moment. So watch that carefully. And once again, just be reminded how stretched away we are from our major moving averages. If we take a look at our IWM, nice power back yesterday, nice little hammering pattern in there, pushing back up. Once again, follow through is going to be very critical here to see if we can push back through that price resistance area in the chart. Again, with the data today, there's every reason to believe that's possible. And if that occurs, then we need to start stretching up through these areas and testing some resistance here in the chart to get back through and above this big black candle here in the chart. If the bears were to have anything to say, well, you can see fairly easily, it wouldn't be all that hard to see a possibility that we could push back down and retest this low here on that big bearish engulf candle. And if we were to fail there, I would suggest pushing back down to test yesterday's low and try to hold on to this support level that I've got drawn that comes across from way over into here in IWM. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX yesterday popped up pretty substantially on some fear, particularly right at the time when there was the rumor that Donald Trump was going to fire Jay Powell. And, well, that didn't happen, and we got a confirmation from the president. It's highly unlikely that he would do that. So we will see. But that being said, we pushed that fear up here quite a bit and then reversed it yesterday. And again, kind of pushing right back down here in an effort to suggest there's not much fear. But you can see we might be trying to hang in here and hold a higher low. It all depends on how these bulls follow through today. If this were to hold a higher low in here and we see some sellers coming in, that's where some real selling could pick up. That's where we could drop into those big areas toward our major moving averages in the indexes, and it might encourage those bears to really get going. If, however, the bulls can push on through, then I would like to see that we break this little area low here on that bullish side, pushing that back down and seeing if we can come back down into some of these areas here of the chart and follow through. I would say right now the bulls have a little bit of challenge with that because they haven't been, at least at the moment, showing much breadth. Energy in that breadth to do that, but we'll look at that in just a second. If we take a look at our T2122, the 4-week new high, new low ratio, you can see we had a nice bounce back yesterday, getting just back above that 50% area here in the chart. So what that means is if the bulls can find inspiration here on the day, we have about an equal opportunity for the bulls or the bears here in the chart. If the bears were to get going, remember, we haven't visited this area down here in a very long time because we've been so relentlessly bullish. But if those bulls can find that momentum, that breadth here to push on higher, we've got the space for them now to relieve that pressure in that selling. So watch that carefully. Our T2108 percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average turned up yesterday as well, but I gotta tell you, it wasn't as much as you had thought it would be with that big reversal on the day. We looked really bullish in our indexes, but didn't get as strong a move here as you would expect in T2108. That being said, we're holding on to some support area here in the chart, so there's nothing bad here holding above 50%. If the bulls can continue to find inspiration, I would look up here toward that 60% area, and then we can start stretching back up toward these high tops here in T2108. Remember, if the bears were to get going, look for support there around 50%. Beyond that, we have a pretty good fall that could happen here in the chart back down toward this 40% area here to find that next area of price support in T2108. Our T2107, still looking pretty darn good. If we look in here around this trend, still staying very bullish, holding on in there. We did pull back here toward that 40 area of the chart, but there's some good support in there. Once again, as much as we moved up yesterday, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more energy in T2107. So if the bulls can continue to push that move back up, let's look for some of these resistance areas up in here to be tested and see if we can pop on through there. If the bears were to have anything to say and give a good solid test of this support area and trend, if that were to fail, then I see that next area of support down here somewhere in that 35 range of T2107. Our T2101, taking a look at that, this is the problem that we had yesterday. When we pushed back up yesterday, it was not followed by breadth. Our breadth was pretty flat. Even on the sell side, it was pretty flat yesterday, and that's why we whipped around so much, chopping, because there was a lot of uncertainty in the market. So we need to see, if we're going to follow through to the bullish side, we need to see a little bit of that breadth coming up, supporting that move to the upside. And perhaps the data will give us that today, perhaps it won't. Just watch that carefully here. Our breadth seems to be a little bit lacking at the moment. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. I'm tongue-tied, I guess. I couldn't say it. Our economic calendar today, we've got quite a few data points here to be paying attention to. We've got jobless claims coming in this morning. The consensus is suggesting 233 on those claims. I think if it comes in like that, the market's not going to be too concerned about that. And then probably the most notable here today is going to be the retail sales numbers. Consensus is suggesting that our retail sales numbers are up from a negative 0.9 to a 0.1. X vehicles month over month up from a negative 0.3 to 0.3, and X vehicles and gas from a negative 0.1 to a 0.1. Now, one of the things that I want to point out in here, we've been told by all of the institutions and everybody out there that these tariffs are going to tear things up. If this is true, if this comes in this way, and we see the consumers are having no impact after all of these tariffs for several months, and it doesn't seem to be hurting retail sales, I would say that's a bullish sign for the market as well, particularly after that PPI showed declines there. Our CPI showed that coming up, but our PPI looking pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see how all of these earnings coming out over the next couple of months here, if those earnings have been affected by those tariffs, because some of the internal numbers are not showing us any pain or pressure yet. If we take a look, and I'm surprised by that. If we take a look here, Philly Fed manufacturing number, they're looking for that to be a negative 0.4, but that's an improvement from the 4.0 negative, so that could provide a little bit of inspiration, although manufacturing is just something we don't care about as long as we're focused on tech. Import-export prices, looking for import prices to improve and year over year stay flat, and export prices to improve from a negative 0.9 to a negative 0.1. So keep an eye on that today. We've got business inventories. Business inventories are expecting that to stay in the consensus flat, 0.0. And housing market index in here suggesting that that is going to move higher by a tick from 32 to 33. Now after that, we've got Kugler that will be speaking. We've got a natural gas report. We've got a couple of bond auctions in here for a 4 and 8 week. We've got Daily, Cook speaking, Treasury International Capital, Fed balance sheet after the bell, and Waller after the bell today. And then looking into Friday as you're planning forward, we got housing starts and permits, consumer sentiment numbers will be out, and then, of course, that Baker Hughes rig count, which nobody's going to pay attention to. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today, and we're a little bit busier on that earnings calendar. As you can see here, I've putting them all together. I'm not going to cover every one of these today because it makes the video a little bit long. So what I'd suggest you do is grab a screenshot of that, pause the video, grab a screenshot. Now remember, there are more reports than this. These are just those that I consider to be kind of notable. You'll want to be paying attention to probably the most notable this afternoon is going to be Netflix. So keep an eye on that after the bell today. If we were to take a look just at a couple here, PepsiCo beating on top and bottom line estimates, even though they're showing global sales are starting to decline. But nice little pop there in PepsiCo this morning. We're going to hear from Cintas here today. Not much going on there as of yet. We've got UBS, US Bancorp, moving a little bit lower here this morning. So keep an eye on some of these reports. Manpower not doing much just yet, probably just a little bit of weight on that earnings report at the moment. Let's take a peek at some of the stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and then also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. I very much appreciate it. It helps a ton. And I got to tell you, I'm humbled every day because I never, ever thought there'd be this many people that would support content that's not filled full of hype and prediction, just really looking at the technicals of the chart. So thank you, everyone. It means a lot to me. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. Remember, everyone, they're not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market. Remembering that we're pretty stretched in these indexes, and maybe we might be in that situation where the bears are gaining a little bit of energy here for a little bit more pullback, but we've got to wait and see. Stay with the upside trend until the trend breaks. Let's take a look at some of these stocks. Now, J&J had a great earnings report yesterday, really popping hard here. So what I'd suggest is you may want to start keeping an eye on some of these other drug maker stocks. Take a look at Merck. Now, Merck's been coming up out of this bottom for a while. It's going to report on the 29th, so you still got a little bit of time on this, but watch that carefully. Started to perk up yesterday in there. Might be something coming around here in Merck. Remember, this thing has just been beaten down big time, and Merck is trying to come around a little bit. If we take a look at our major moving averages, this is what we call a rounded bottom breakout pattern. Very nice looking chart moving in that upside trend. It is shallow, but with the J&J report certainly helping out here. Keep an eye on that. Moderna is another one you might want to be keeping an eye on. Going to report on 8-7. Nice little stretch here out of this bottom, pushing back up. So a little rest, a little pullback that's starting to occur right now might be just what the doctor ordered in here. If we hold in this area, we might see some upside potential. And here again, broke through that 50-day and then just took off toward that 200 in a big run to the upside. Other stocks like Amgen in that sector, setting up nice little resting consolidation, trying to make that higher low happen in here. Had a good bullish candle yesterday. We've got to get through this resistance. Reporting on 8.5. Keep an eye on Amgen in there. Other areas of the market, take a look at TWLO. TWLO, although we had a little bit of a rough day yesterday, I want you to notice that we popped through that resistance, and this is just a pullback to retest this area of support. So I'd watch this pretty carefully in here. If this can hold, I would look for that next opportunity in 12 follow. Remember, going to report on 8/7, so it's something we really have to be paying attention to. So many earnings coming up, and you want to be careful with these earnings reports because you can get head faked pretty easily in these trades. Take a look at what's going on in airlines. Airlines hanging in here. We've got American Airlines going to report on 7/24. Just kind of hanging in this nice bullish pattern, trying to show a little bit of bullishness. Well, at the same time, yesterday we had UAL reporting. A little bit of uncertainty there in UAL in their report, but nothing bearish happening in that chart. So watch that carefully, holding up here in this area. I'd look for that next opportunity, as long as we hold that trend, that next opportunity for that to push to the upside. Airbnb has been showing some effort here, trying to push through this major area of price resistance in the chart. Going to report on 8/5. You'll want to note in here that we've got these little higher lows happening in here. If this can find a little bit of bullish energy, that might push right on through to the upside. So keep an eye on that. Completely different area of the market. Take a look at GLW. Corning, remember Corning supplies all the glass for all of the devices that we carry around nowadays in tech, at least the majority of the glass, and we're at a very, very bullish potential setup here. Nice pop here a couple of days ago, resting just a little bit. Watch that carefully in here for that potential move to the upside. Remember, reporting on 7/29. I'm going to continue to mention this BTU. BTU continuing to rest in this pattern, trying to show that bullishness coming up in here. Remember, one of the big things, if we're going to get to AGI in this AI push, we're going to need massive amounts of increases in power, and BTU might be just one of those areas that catches a spark higher here. So watch that carefully on BTU. Setting up looking pretty good. Now, remember, I have a bias on this. I am holding that chart. Take a look at some of these industrials. My goodness, Caterpillar. Nice, strong move there yesterday, pushing through some resistance here in the chart. I'd be keeping an eye on Caterpillar here. That's a good looking little pattern. It may have to rest a little bit more to come back out here to trend, so there may not be a rush to it, but watch that closely. That's looking pretty good. Boeing continues to hang in. I did sell this position, took my profit, was looking for a little bit of rest, and we are the last few days just kind of resting in here. This might just rest a little bit more, but I would keep a close eye on it the way some of these industrials are looking. 3M. Now 3M's going to report tomorrow, so that kind of, yeah, you got to be careful with this on 3M, but nice little resting pattern here on that. So some of these industrials conglomerates still looking very good, may have that opportunity for that upside move. And last but not least, a couple of the big techs. Apple in a very, very bullish pattern as we wait on earnings on the 31st. If we can catch a little bullish energy in here, every reason to believe that could push on through to the upside. And you want to be keeping an eye on AMD, that's already made a real strong move here. Might need a little rest. I wouldn't want to chase that. Boy, there's a lot of strength there in AMD. And Google, better get another O in there. Google could be setting up for that next leg higher. Nice little stretch up and rest back toward trend. Look for that opportunity there. So there's quite a few stocks for you to look at, and boy, believe me, there are a lot more that are showing lots and lots of bullish potential. And there are even some trades starting to show some shorting potential in there. So with that, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you right back here bright and early Friday morning. Take care, everyone.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. raise my ranch on the trader's trail, trading with heart where the profits prevail.